All right, Shaggy. Well, the Colorado Avalanche head into Seattle for game 3. They get down early, once again, giving up the first goal of the game. Then they take a lead, and then they give up that. Well, they don't give up the lead, but Seattle comes back to tie it. And then the Avalanche again just put their foot down on the gas and have taken control of this series 2-1. What are we expecting game 3? We'll talk about, or excuse me, game 4. We'll talk about game 3 and what's going on with Val Nichushkin. All that and then some. New episode of Locked On Avalanche coming at you.
You're Locked On Avalanche, your daily podcast on the Colorado Avalanche. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, everybody. Welcome to the latest episode of Locked On Avalanche. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Chris Maselli. With me, as always, Mr. Shaggy Von Doom, Kyle Sullivan. Thank you for making this your first listen of the day. That's always appreciated. Make sure to follow us on our social media outlets, LOPN_Avalanche on Twitter, Locked On Avalanche on Instagram. Questions, comments, concerns, and opinions, lockedonavalanche@gmail.com. And follow us on our YouTube channel over on YouTube. Hit subscribe, get notified when a new show goes live. So, yes, the Avalanche go into Seattle for game 3 and win that 6-4 and have regained control of the series. They now lead the series 2-1. So we will get into that game as well as what we feel is going to be happening in game 4, which is, again, still in Seattle. But where we wanted to start briefly, we're not going to dwell on this too much, and this is the situation going on with Val Nichushkin. And the reason why we're not really going to dwell on it too much is because we don't know really what's going on, and we don't want to sit here and just go down that rabbit hole of conspiracy theories and what it could be. We know it's something, and it's interesting, and it's also concerning because he seemed all set to play. He made the trip with them to Seattle, and then for whatever reason, moments before the game, or even moments before they were going to the arena, he had a security escort, from what we understand, back to the airport and went back to Colorado. If you want to go down that conspiracy theory rabbit hole, you're more than welcome to do so on social media. They do a good job of that over there, right?
Play this episode backwards.
Yeah. But we're not going to be in the business of just talking about things that we don't know about, especially when it obviously seems to be his personal life. But we will say, whatever it is, we hope it is nothing serious. And when he is able to, he can rejoin the Avalanche, because in the end, this is just a game, and life will always come first. And hockey will always be secondary.
We thought that Vegas taking the pedals off of Winnipeg's stationary bikes was going to be the biggest off-ice story in the playoffs. The Avs take that title too. I'm not going to sit here and theorize what's going on. That's not my place, not my job. And until we get more information, I'm just wishing the best for Nuke, right? And hopefully the team could rally and get back to business, but you always want the best for Nuke and everyone involved.
Yeah. And that's what you're hearing. You're hearing he could be back for game 4. You're hearing it could be an indefinite leave. But the one thing that's been consistent is nobody is saying anything. Jared Bednar really isn't saying anything. I know some people have reached out to his agent who hasn't said anything. So if those people are not coming forth with some information, then we're not just going to sit here and just CSI this thing and just, come out with these crazy theories. If people come out with it with some information, then we will talk about it. But we're not going to be, I told you earlier, we're not going to be TMZ. So, but like you said, whatever it is, we just hope it's nothing serious. And he can, and when the time is right, he can get back to playing some playoff hockey. So having said that, in terms of playoff hockey, the Avalanche are back in control of the series with Seattle. And I'm here kind of saying, ever since they flipped that switch in game 2, they've really been in control. Even though they gave up that first goal again to Seattle in game 3, it was another moment of just like, okay, like that happened.
Yeah.
Let's settle down and let's just play our game again. And they did for pretty much the majority of that game.
It was one of those moments that we've talked about ad nauseum, that you never feel like the Avs are out of it, even though they went down. And according to the TBS announcers, Grubauer was both teams' goalie.
Yeah, I get it. I mean,
Yeah,
I think I've done that a few times too. So,
I
but
get it.
it was kind of funny.
It was funny. I mean, they interrupt my Impractical Jokers to play a game. They better get it right.
Yeah, right.
But it's when the goal starts out for the Avalanche, a shorthanded masterpiece from JT Compher. It was one of those that you could kind of settle back down in your chair and you're like, okay, let's see how they figure this out. And they did. And with Kale having that go ahead shot, like that's what you want. That's all you ask out of the Avalanche. And ever since that moment where they theoretically flipped the switch, this is the Avalanche team that we've anticipated. And all of those fans that were jumping off the ship after game 1, we have enough life preservers. Come on back, because things aren't as bad as you thought.
No, and you had, well, the Avalanche, what was it, 40? Was it 49 seconds or 39 seconds? I think it was 49 seconds when they scored their 2 goals, and Seattle did it in 19 seconds, where they get back-to-back goals and they tie this thing up. And the crowd is going crazy, as you expected them to, being the first playoff game in Seattle's franchise history. Everything was there, not to just implode and just kind of just lose track of this game, but you give up that opening goal, and then when you take a 2-goal lead and then give it away in 19 seconds, and then extend your lead from 3-3 to 6-3, and then you gave up 1 a little bit later. That's what this team can do to you, and I think that is, having so many guys on this team that have been through this before.
Yeah.
You could just see, like, they never panic, even giving up 2 goals in 19 seconds to tie the game. There's no panic in them. It's like, okay, well, we built a 3-1 lead by doing this. Let's just keep doing that. We don't need to completely change our game plan mid-game because we gave up 2 goals in 19 seconds. Not what we wanted to do, but let's just put that behind us and then just methodically keep doing what we've been doing.
Yeah, it's one of those that if you're watching that game by yourself or in a crowd of 100 people, we all said at that moment when they got those really 2 close goals that not another one. We have to get back in this. You have to get the next one. You have to stop this, because things are getting out of hand. Everybody said it out loud. And it's one of those that ever since they flipped the switch, that the Avalanche understood what they have to do in the moment. Like, they knew it's not, oh gosh, what's Seattle doing? What all this? They understood the assignment and they got back to work. And to see the Avalanche just have that collective team knowledge of what's ahead of them and what they have to do, instead of this scrambling around and trying to make things figure out and make it work. Like, that's what you want to see. Like, that second goal, that was a bad beat by Newhook. He was lost. There was a lot of bad things on those 2 plays.
Yeah.
And they didn't sit and dwell on, come on, you got to get with it. No, they knew what they had to do. They collectively stepped up and took control of that game. And it was a no doubter the rest of the way.
It really was. And I mean, is Seattle just not doing what they did in that first game anymore? They're completely out of what their initial game plan was, which worked in game 1. And it's so, I keep going back to that they were saying it during the broadcast, and I mentioned it in an episode last week of when they said, Dave Haxel just says, we play one way. And I don't think that can win you a Stanley Cup, let alone maybe a series. Like, you need, and I'm not saying he's sitting there and doesn't make adjustments at all, but if you're just saying, like, this is our style of play, take it or leave it, when you get to the playoffs, teams figure that out. This is not like the regular season where you play one team and then the next day you're playing a different team. If you're playing the same team day in and day out for a series, that team will figure this stuff out. And when you're going up against a team like the Avalanche, who Jared Bednar just seems to be a master of doing stuff like this and making adjustments, they're going to figure it out. And they just have not been the same team since the Avalanche, about halfway through game 2. This has been all Avs, save for 19 seconds.
Yep.
So you feel pretty good about where this series is headed if you're an Avalanche fan.
Yeah, and it goes to organizational maturity. Like, I know you could say, well, they have Burakovsky's been there. They have all these players for Seattle who have been to the playoffs and understand. But it's an organizational maturity level of being in the playoffs, making that adjustment. Like, you could believe in your one way to get you through the playoffs, but you have to also know how to adjust that way when you are being met with some kind of conflict. The Avalanche know how to do that. Like, if just having members of your team with playoff and cup experience is enough, every team with Corey Perry would win the cup, but they don't. So it's the Avalanche as a collective understand what they have to do. Seattle's still figuring it out. Will they do that in game 4? Who knows?
We'll talk about that. We'll talk about what to expect in game 4, but more to talk about in this game, including the Avs big guns stepping up in this game. We will get to that in a second, but first we're going to discuss Gametime and the Gametime app, gametime.co. Buying tickets to your favorite event shouldn't be stressful, and Gametime is the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all sports, music, comedy, and theater events near you, with killer deals on last-minute tickets and their best price guarantee. You can stop stressing over tickets and start getting hyped for the fun that you will no doubt have. And what are some of the things that we like about the Gametime app? Well, they have flash deals and last-minute tickets, easy to find and buy tickets for every kind of event in your area. Kyle and I's favorite go-to feature, the image of your seat view. Stellar feature right there. And the lowest price guarantee with event cancellation protection. So forget planning months in advance. Gametime has deals on tickets right up to the day of the event. Like I said, you can get those exclusive flash deals on tickets for football, basketball, baseball, concerts, comedy, theater, and so much more. So download the Gametime app, create an account, use the promo code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Once again, create an account and redeem the promo code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. All right. So we'll head into some stats for this one. And the thing that jumps out at you in terms of who scored for the Avs, right? You had 6 goals scored, and you had 2 by McKinnon, 2 by Rantanen, 1 by Cale Makar. So 5 out of your 6 goals were scored by your big guns.
And then a playoff Timothy Comfer.
Right. And your other one is by Comfer, who's been that steady hand pretty much most of the season. So your A1 superstars, and then I don't know, where you slide JT Comfer, at least for this season, kind of in that B list, right? So those are the guys that you rely on for, most of the season, and in games like this where you want your big guys to step up. So just to finish up, Evan Rodriguez with an assist, Newhook with an assist, Lehkonen with 2 assists, Byram with an assist, and Devon Taves with 2. And here's another one you can throw in. Even though he's not on the top pairing with Cale Makar for the last couple games, Taves is he had a rough go of it early on, and he's been one of those guys where it's like once his team turned the switch, he's been one guy in particular who has too. So just thoughts on all that stuff.
Yeah, and absolutely. And like, I know this is something that all the everydayers that listen each and every day understand. Another guy to throw in that who's improved since the switch has been flipped.
Yep.
Samuel Girard.
You know what, man? There's still, are we talking about this rabbit hole with Val Nichushkin? Yeah. There are still people who will just not want to, credit Sammy G for anything.
Yeah.
Fine. Be those people.
Yeah.
He's playing a very good series.
Yeah.
He's never been known for racking up the points. He is kind of pretty good with assists, but he is moving the puck. He's never going to knock guys out, but he is moving guys off the puck. He's doing very good in defensive turn. He's just a good skater. He's a good skater, a good puck mover, and he's showing that in this series. He really is.
And when you see Taze and Gerard escalate their game, it magnifies the head scratching moments that you're getting out of Josh Manson right now. I'm baffled with his play, like that little calf slash that he did early in that game. I am baffled why he keeps doing this, and it needs to stop now. But to see Taze really get into playoff form, and Sammy G, what we could have had through the playoffs last year, I think we're getting a glimpse of it right now.
Yeah, he's playing great. I think a couple other guys that are really having an excellent series. Lars Eller.
Yes.
I think is playing very well. Again, just a steady hand. And I think that's what the Avalanche wanted when they went and got him.
Yes.
They didn't need this guy to put them over the top. They just felt like we get healthy. Those guys that are out can help put.
Yeah, and real quick, like Eller and him stepping up in the moment has been phenomenal. And I know you mentioned it with the 2 points that he had. Lehkonen and his 2 points, that's really big going into game 4, especially with a question mark around Nichushkin. That's production from both Eller and Lehkonen that you want to rely on going into 4, because you don't know what you're going to get out of Val Nichushkin.
Right. And the other guy, other than Eller, Evan Rodriguez.
Yeah.
Erod is playing some good hockey. And I am really impressed with his puck handling skills. Like when you're in making, that transition and you're kind of going into your offensive zone and there's 2, sometimes 3 defenders there. We've seen it so many times with Nathan MacKinnon. He just tries to bowl you over and he will kind of turn the puck over once in a while. A lot of guys do that. It's tough to break through that wall of 2 or 3 guys, right? But when I'll say this, when Evan Rodriguez is doing that, I'm as much on the edge of my seat with what moves he could make as I am with Nathan MacKinnon. He does some nifty puck work in tight spaces, whether it is that like 1-on-2 or 1-on-3, or just in cycling the puck up against the boards in the corners. I'm pretty comfortable when he's in those positions that he can win those battles and come away with the puck and feed a teammate for a chance. He's having a really, really good series.
And if this continues, it's going to make it really hard in the offseason what we do with Evan Rodriguez and the money going his way. Because he's really making a case for it, because I love his puck handling skills and his almost desperation, like the fight or flight reaction that he has in those moments, and his ability to pull it off.
I actually got a good email from our good friend Lothar, who asked me, and this is conversation for the offseason, but he was like, taking into consideration the salary cap, who are you keeping between Comfer and Newhook? And I wrote him a long email back, but you could honestly throw in Evan Rodriguez into that mix too, because what are you going to do? Like, I don't think Newhook's going anywhere. He's going to not cost him that much, but Comfer and Erod, I don't think you're going to be able to keep both those guys. They're playing themselves into some pretty good contracts.
That's an additional storyline to watch during these playoffs. If the games continue going this way, keep that in the back of your mind. Where do we go from here?
Yeah, very, very interesting. So, all right, let's take a quick break here, and then we will get into more of this game, more of what we think game 4 is going to be like, and our sound check as well. All right, let's dive into that stuff. I want to talk about Georgiev actually pretty quick too, because in the playoffs, things just get magnified.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And I don't think he's playing any worse or really any better. I think he's been playing the way he's been playing all season. But when you get into the playoffs and you let up some goals, things get magnified, and people want to say like, oh, is he not playing how he not many people. I'm not hearing like, oh, maybe there should be a change that should be made. not hearing. You hear a little bit of it, but not so loud where it's like, what the heck is wrong with Alexander Georgiev? I think he's playing fine. Like I think he. Are there some saves that I wish he could have made? Yeah, definitely, absolutely. But he's also rising to the occasion when we need him to. Sure, and you're giving up the first goal of the game every game so far, but he's not letting things get out of hand. And he's keeping Seattle at bay when he needs to. He's come up with some really key saves at key moments. I'm fine with how he's playing. This is pretty much how he's been playing all season.
Yeah, you could chalk up a lot of his playoff goals that he let in, about 70 or 80% of them, to bad play in front of him.
Yeah.
And it's one of those you really can't fault him because you're really getting mad at the D pair in front of him. But I've been completely fine with him, even being the biggest Frankie guy in the world. Like,
Right.
yes, I'm still a big Frankie stan. I'm completely confident with Georgiev right in the whole way.
Yeah. So I think, I don't think there's any big change made there. And you just say, okay, keep playing the good way. The things that you've given up, let's just tighten those up a little bit.
Yep.
And then, Seattle is going to have that much more of a hill to climb. So, but I think overall he's fine. You like to see, we mentioned it, we were talking about the stats with Nathan MacKinnon just really taking over. Cale Makar, who does, I mean, I don't say he doesn't look 100%, but he looks like 80-85%.
Yeah.
It's not like he's dogging it, and you just seem like, man, maybe he should like take a seat and just take a extra day's rest. No, I think he's healthy enough to play, but for a while he wasn't just doing those Cale Makar things. So I think nobody's 100%. Nathan MacKinnon's not 100%, but look what he's doing. So as far as like Cale Makar goes, yeah, if he's not 100%, but he's going to play the way he did. Like he really turned it up again. And he's been there. He's doing his thing, but that rocket of a slap shot off the face off, if he was 80%, that alone brought him up to 90%. You feel so much better when you do something like that.
And you feel so much better because you got production out of Cale Makar being at 80%. And you also get it from Mikko Rantanen, who's been kind of invisible to the point that Jonesy was talking about it, I believe, in game 2, whereas I really like Mikko to show up, or it was Ferraro, I can't remember who was commenting on the time that if they had Mikko engaged, this would be a different game. He has been kind of absent, especially after this regular season you'd expect him to continue that. So you had Mikko getting the 2 and Cale getting the 1, and then you had Nathan MacKinnon getting the 2. Like, who can beat you when you have production from those guys on that level?
It's that, because that's what you want all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And then what's your depth doing? Because Seattle has the depth, right? Yep. So you got to match that. They can't match what you have on your top lines. They can't. Yep. You need to match what they can offer on their depth lines. You've done it for a little bit, but that needs to be consistent, because that's where Seattle can beat you, right? So, and let's get into it. Good.
And that goes back to our point that we were saying before the playoffs on making that last decision on who makes it in. This goes to our point. We were screaming Mulligan this whole time. We haven't seen him yet. Yeah. And Chris brought it up many a times when I brought that up, that you don't know what he's going to do in the playoffs. Are the playoffs going to swallow him? To this point, yes.
Kind of has. Yeah. He kind of has. Like, we all loved what he did in the regular season, but he hasn't really. That's the perfect example of a guy that we need to match what Seattle can do. So, just a funny quick note, like, because you were talking about your impractical jokers, because the game started, because the Tampa-Toronto game was going into overtime, so they started this game on True TV. And I watched it on that, and they matched it up with a commercial break to go back to Impractical Jokers and then kick the game back over to TNT, right?
Yep.
So I forgot that I was watching it on True TV during the commercial break. And then when they came back and it was Impractical Jokers, I'm like, oh yeah, I change it. And JT Compher is celebrating his goal. So I actually missed JT Compher's goal because Toronto and Tampa couldn't end on time.
when they announced that it was going to True TV, I
Yeah.
started watching Impractical Jokers up into the commercial break where they led into the game,
Yeah.
and I was kind of wrapped up in it. I was like, oh, this is going to be funny coming back from the break. And then it was welcome to Seattle. I was like, oh yeah, I'm here for hockey.
Yeah, and then it was just forgot I was watching it.
Yep.
So that's what you get in playoff hockey, though. You never know. As far as game 4 goes, and then we'll get to our sound check. What are we thinking? Obviously, Seattle wants to try to get back to what was working for them in game 1. Avalanche want to keep the pressure on, and all that stuff that I mentioned in the beginning about how they gave up the first goal, then they gave up the 2-goal lead in 19 seconds, and then they extended the lead. You do all that, and you don't have Val Nichushkin there. So again, this team is just finding ways to win. It doesn't matter who's there. They feel like they can beat anybody with anybody that's there or not there for this team. So what do you think is going to happen in game 4? Because this is do or die for Seattle. They do not want to go back to Colorado down 3-1.
That's exactly what I was about to say. This is about to be the best version of Seattle you're going to see. They are a trapped rattlesnake in the corner. Like, they're not going to roll over. They're going to be as dangerous as they possibly can. You can't believe in what you're doing right now. You have to prove it one more time and bring it back to ball and really put them out.
Yeah.
But you cannot rest on your laurels right now. You have to keep pushing and keep building. And with the possible absence of Val Nichushkin, it's only going to get worse. You need, like Chris mentioned, you have to get some more out of the depth scoring. JT Compher on a shorthanded opportunity is not enough. So somebody else has to step up.
Yeah. And it's odd because without Nichushkin, he is your best forecheckers. I thought that was the best forechecking game the Avalanche had.
Yep.
Those puck battles that were horrible in game 1 and for half of game 2, like the Avs were winning almost all of them that I saw up against the boards. So they got to keep that up. I would really like to see this power play get some goals.
Yeah.
They're getting looks and they're setting up. It's not like they're getting stood up in the neutral zone and they can't. They're getting zone entries. They're getting looks that they want to get. They just can't seem to crack through on a power play. So I'd like to see that start to improve a little bit in terms of getting a goal in the net. A couple of them for this game.
It's funny you mentioned the power play improving being your thing that you're looking for, because I'm thinking the opposite. I'm sick and tired of looking at stat lines where we're giving up 4, 5, 6 power plays that we have to kill. Like, it's great that we're winning games like this, but we cannot be taking ridiculous, goofy penalties and making it harder on ourselves. Like, I love the fact that we're killing them off and we're doing our job, but let's not make it harder, especially in games like game 4, when you're going to really need every opportunity you can. Capitalize on that power play, but do not be slashing calves, Josh Manson.
Yeah, don't just be taking liberties with like, oh, I can play a little bit more aggressive because we're just killing the penalties off. You don't want to play that way.
Yeah,
and you do. You need to be a little bit smarter. Yeah, what was Seattle?
1 for 6.
1 for 6. You don't see that a lot from the Avalanche, committing 6 penalties. They commit the normal amount of penalties. They're good for 2 or 3, maybe 4 in a game. But you don't see that. So you want to smarten up. Nathan McKinnon, hilarious in the post game with TNT. They asked because he took a late penalty, which is why Seattle got that one power play goal to get them 4 goals on the game. And they asked him after the game was over during an interview, like, what were you mad at? And he was just like, I think just everything. Like, he didn't give a specific answer. I think he was just angry, which is, hey, you're up, you're going to win the game. And he is still angry about something. And they showed a replay, and there was somebody on the Kraken who was maybe, taking some runs that really didn't need to because the game was pretty much in hand. And McKinnon is that type of guy who's like, yeah, just because we have the game won doesn't mean I'm going to let you do that.
Yeah.
And that's his style of play. So, but at the same time, it's like, all right, you can do that stuff if all the other stuff wasn't happening. If you're not committing these dumb penalties all throughout this series and you go and do that, got no problem with it. And because it was at the end of the game, I really don't have a problem with it. Like, he's not going to do that in the middle of the game.
You would hope not. But
you would.
But 6 opportunities is way too much in the playoffs for him.
It is. You're 100% right. All right, let's wrap things up with our sound check. Kyle and I pick one song each that we feel best summarizes the most recent game. These songs go up on a playlist over on Spotify. Just search LOA Sound Check Volume number 2. Go ahead, search for volume number 1 if you want to follow that one as well. But what do you got for this one, sir?
I've been talking about not resting on your laurels, but look at me. I'm resting on my laurels.
You're
I'm
about to do
going with a song from one of my favorite groups of all time, Wu-Tang Clan. Y'all been warned. Like,
it's a good one.
It's a great song, great vibe, fantastic listen when you pull up the playlist. But Seattle, you had your chance.
Well,
and
not only Seattle, just the NHL world at large, because you know, a lot of people were saying like, wow, the way that Seattle played in game 1 are the Avalanche in trouble, and this could be and it still could be a long series. It's only 2-1, right? But again, like how the Avalanche were going into this series from the regular season, you felt good about it. They just played a bad game, and when the bad game is game 1, for those 48 hours till game 2, people are going to be dissecting it. And these last couple games, I think you're right, man. I think people have reminded the hockey world, like, like we're warning you again. We're warning you once again, which is why I went with Aerosmith's "Back in the Saddle," because that they're back in charge.
Yep.
You know, Seattle had flipped home ice. Avalanche have flipped it back. They're in a great position. They're in the driver's seat right now.
Great riff.
Saddle. Yeah, man. Solid. Can't beat it. So go follow those two in that playlist over on Spotify. And we wanted, now we're back in the saddle. Now we want to take a stranglehold. Ooh, that could be the next one. I literally just came up with it. That was not planned, dude. That was not. But my sound check is already set if the Avalanche win this one.
That's funny when you're hyping up your pick. I was almost like, is he going with Nickelback? How you remind me?
We got to get a Nickelback in it. Well, you did a Nickelback.
And it's probably not going to be the last. I have no hate for Nickelback or Creed. So,
Creed's got some good riffs, but you did a sea shanty Nickelback.
That's right,
song,
for the Kraken last time.
So good. That is, I've never heard that in my life. That is fantastic. That's on volume 1 if you want to go check that out. But that's going to wrap it up for today, everybody. We'll be back tomorrow to discuss game 4. Hopefully it can be a 3-1 lead heading back to Colorado. And if there's anything that we get that's solid info on Val Nichushkin, we will then talk about it. But if there's not, you're not going to hear nonsense from us. Let the man live. All right. So it's going to wrap it up. Thank you for tuning in, making this your first listen of the day. Always appreciated. He is Mr. Shaggy Von Doom, Kyle Sullivan. I'm Chris Maselli. This is the Locked On Avalanche podcast. Enjoy the game. We'll see you guys tomorrow.